now we get the honor to speak to. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jessie Frietze, and I use she, they pronouns. And I'm a skater.
Yeah. You're based in LA?
Yeah, so I'm based in LA. I'm originally from San Diego, but I live here now. And yeah, I've been skating for about, I want to say like 15 years, might be a little bit more than that.
Your whole life?
Pretty much my whole life, yeah, since I was 8.
Okay.
A little bit before, I had some time before I was 8 that I didn't skate, but
I had some time in diapers.
I had some life before that. Okay, so how about you tell us about your story, how in terms of skateboarding, how it started. I think we all have interesting stories of how we picked up a board, where it came from, and so I would love to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can just start with like how I started skateboarding, because I feel like it was kind of random. Like, I'm not sure where the first skateboard came from. Basically, I was just in my garage and I saw this old school fishtail, like pink deck. And to this day, I've been trying to find the graphic, but I can't find it. Like, I think I have this like memory of what it is, and it probably doesn't even exist because it's like in my memory.
Like you fabricate.
But yeah, it might have been like a Caballero or something, but it was like super pink, and that's all I remember. Anyway, but like a neon pink, like 80s.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was cool. And it had like a dragon on it, so that kind of gives me a little bit of a sign. But I found
You gotta design it.
Yeah, you just have to recreate it.
Yeah, I have to basically just design it myself.
Your own.
You're totally right. Totally right. So yeah, I just found this board in my garage and just started kind of like riding it one day. I think probably like just sitting on it on my butt and like riding down my driveway and stuff. So yeah, I don't really know where it came from, but I just remember like the feeling of it. It was really fun and cool. And at the time, my mom worked at the Encinitas YMCA, which is now known as like Tony Hawk Skate Park, or the Eki YMCA. And they had a obviously huge skate park there. So I used to go like to summer camp, and after school, like I would just go ride over there. And kind of fast forward, right? Because I can't remember like a lot of like the early like maybe year or something before I went to the skate park. I think I was just riding in my driveway and stuff with that old skateboard deck. But then I started going to the YMCA, and I remember like the first time I was learning to drop in, because it's like this very specific story. Well, firstly, I was like usually the only girl at the skate park at that time. So it's like pretty much just me. There was like one other girl who is also very well known in the skating world. Her name is Lindsay Adam Hawkins. Amazing skateboarder. So it was like pretty much me and her, but I didn't see her a lot when I was there. So it was just me usually. And I remember watching like all the boys learn to drop in on the mini ramp, and like there wasn't really anybody around. Like I think this was just during like a session or something. It wasn't camp, so there wasn't anybody around to teach you or whatever. And so I was like, I'm just gonna try it, I guess. Like I just watched them and I was gonna go for it, and I like totally ate shit. I just ate shit. Like I knocked the wind out of myself. I leaned back. It was horrible. And it like hurt really bad. And
did you like try it again that day, or were you like,
yeah, I think I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I later that day I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go back and try it. Like I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Thank you. You just kind of had to. Like that's the only way, It was just like I gotta do it. Yeah. So went back and tried it and landed it, and it was like a magical moment. Like I remember the feeling of the wheels like hitting the wood coming back down, and like it was just magic. Like I was like totally hooked, and that's I think when I really became a skateboarder, is like that moment of like, wow, this is so cool. So it's kind of like how I got started, and from there on I was just like,
yeah, the Tony Hawk.
Yeah, this was so there's 2 YMCAs in San Diego. And they're pretty well-known skate spots. They used to house the X Games vert ramps there. So this was the Eki YMCA in like 1998.
All right.
Yeah.
I see.
So then after you got hooked, you're super into it, but you stop at some point. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Like why?
That journey of like deciding, okay, like I maybe right now I'm not gonna do this anymore.
Yeah. That was that's like a hard fast forward, probably like let's see. I'm trying to like remember all the years in my head right now.
Yeah.
That must have been when I was about like 18.
Okay.
Around that time.
Quite a bit of time ends up.
Oh yeah.
So during the time, the years between YMCA and 18, you were like competing, you were like,
let me give a little some history on like skateboarding in the 90s, I guess.
Yes, please.
And what the experience was like. So again, there weren't really any contests for girls. Like I would compete at the local contests, like at my at camp and stuff like that, which was really fun. And I was always like really, really nervous and shy. Like I was a super shy kid and quiet. And skateboarding was really like my outlet, I guess. It was like my outlet for speaking more to the mental health. Like skateboarding was more of an outlet for when my parents got divorced. It was like the thing that I always could go to in my garage. Like it was just always there. And the experience of that outside though was like completely different. Like when you go to the skate park, right? Like when you experience skateboarding by yourself, it's kind of just like your own in this own little world. And then you go to a park for the first time, you're like, whoa, you're like thrown into this like social like society. Basically you're thrown into this thing.
It has rules and expectations.
And it's like going to school for the first time. You're just like, what? I'm like, I just like did not. And it's like going to middle school actually is more.
Oh no.
It like really is though, right? Like you get there and you're just like all these rules, expectations,
trying to figure out your place in this system.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's kind of what it felt like, because I was young at that time, like 9, 10 or whatever, and just kind of like a teenager and forming who I was going to be. But like once I got to the park, it wasn't just me and my skateboard anymore. It was like, oh, who am I in this place? I'm obviously the only girl. At that time, I didn't really think much of it, to be honest. Like I and I'm trying to remember if I had written about this or not, but like I always just wanted to be a skater, like regardless of my gender. It was just like,
you were just skate. That's it. Like
and do you have any memories of maybe the first time that you felt like, like people see me differently because I'm like a girl?
I mean, for sure, I remember specifically, it was actually very early on, like riding in my driveway, because I had some like dudes from my school that lived down the street, and they would skate around the like coldest or like the boulevard or whatever. And I remember like always feeling like I needed to hide from them. Because like I was nervous that they would, I don't know, like they were actually really nice. Like later as we got older, they were pretty cool, but at that time we were all really young, and it was just like, oh, I don't want them to see me. I don't want them to see me skateboarding because they might like tell my friends or whatever. And nobody really knew I was a skateboarder, I think, until probably my teens, something like that. But yeah, that was like the first instance that I really remember being, but I can't really tell if that was because I was a girl or if it's because I was shy.
Like because you were starting out.
You were starting out, and I think everybody experiences that. But when I went to the park, I mean, even that drop-in story, like I knew that I couldn't go be like one of the bros and ask for help. So I was just like, I just have to do it by myself.
You have to like prove that
Yeah.
you could be like them because of the
Yeah.
expectation that you needed to be already, like as in like you are expected to be less, therefore I need to like
Be
match up to
more.
you.
Not even
Yeah,
that,
it was kind
I
of
would
like,
say
I
you
just need to
be
go do
more.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because they can get help, but you have to step further
like I
than
can
them.
do it
Yeah, you have to
too.
like overcompensate, and not just I can do it too, but I can do it without any help.
Yeah, I think there was like a lot of that going on. Like, again, I think I was probably like 9 maybe at this time, so it's really hard to like unpack all that mentally when you're 9, but I definitely felt like the implied notions were there.
Yeah.
That I felt those things, and the guys kind of like all like helped each other, if that makes sense. It was like, okay, come on bro, but they wouldn't really do that with the girl. They would be like I think the experience that I kind of remember most specifically is like when a girl would get on the skate ramp, like everybody would just like be quiet.
Oh wow,
that's so,
you know what I mean? And so it's like it's you can feel it. It's like an implied like feeling of like, oh, like here she comes type of thing. And I don't know if that's what they were thinking. You know what I mean? Like I have no idea what they were thinking. And now that I'm older, I do know that frame of thought from guys is still there, but a lot of the times it's not. It's actually them. It's their whatever they're saying about themselves because I'm getting on the ramp. You know, it's not even about me really.
Yeah, of course.
But,
You know, it's interesting because when we were in Paris and we got lucky to see the Paris Conquest,
I was gonna bring this up.
The competition, and it was there was men and women, and I mean, they were all doing amazing things, you know, like they're just flying. You're wondering, how are you not like dead already? And it would be so upsetting in that, like, when the women skaters would come up, and again, they were doing amazing things, very similar tricks, if not the same, jumping of the same height. It didn't matter. And they would land them, and the reaction of the public was always less, like
it's like the energy is just lower.
And I was just like, you know, it's not like they're not also putting themselves out there to the same risk, to the same like I mean, how long it takes for this person to do this trick is the same as, you know, as this other person, or it was just upsetting, and we could really see the difference because
you could feel it
on the same at the same time, right?
Since it would go between the competitions like immediately. It was hard not to notice like this kind of implicit bias. And I think honestly, I don't think a lot of people actually notice that they even have these things going on in their head, you know. They don't know. So like embedded in our society.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It's kind of like they don't even realize that they're doing this.
No, I don't think so.
But it's still happening.
Yeah.
You know? And you can feel it.
I think like we can come back to the convo, but I think like definitely when I'm at competitions, like I skate some local contests around LA and stuff, and it's kind of like an expectation that the girls are going to be less, that they're going to be less energetic, they're going to be less whatever. And so you can kind of feel it already, like when, you know, the girls come up, like people kind of roam around, they're not like,
the break.
Oh my God, like it's a break.
Let me get food now.
Like let me go get food now. It's 100%. That'd be a good skate company name. Anyway, like that's actually really funny. It's making me laugh. But I think the other thing is that actually just drives me personally harder to just like shred, because like I think once you know, I skate with a lot of older guys, and at a certain point I just had an instance of where this happened to me, trying to get on this particular ramp, and like the guys were just kind of like, oh, like, okay, you know, like it's all good. Like I've known them for a long time too, so it's kind of like awkward. And then once I get on there, like I'm trying so hard to land this air, and like once I get it, it doesn't matter that I'm a girl. It doesn't matter. It's like they're so amped, like it was like so much energy, like the same amount of energy when their bros were landing it. And so like I think like I don't know if I want to be like mindful in how I word this, because it's like I feel like as a woman, I just want to shred as hard.
Yeah.
And like the guys, the energy comes once you're just in that moment, once you're just in the zone, and you just don't care. You know what I mean? You just don't care.
Yeah.
You're just like kind of like, screw you, like I'm just gonna skate and do my thing, and like I'm gonna shred. And I think that bias kind of like just withers away. It just floats away at a certain point, and the energy comes back.
But then going back to those early years, did you have that same mentality, or this is the mentality that you have now after?
Well, that's a hard question.
Years of trying to figure out how to better deal with all of it.
No, I think I had to think about it for a second, because I'm trying to remember what I used to feel, because it's definitely different now. It's different. There's instances where it still brings me back to that teenage mindset, and so like I definitely felt that teenage mindset this last week or so, went in that situation, trying to get on this ramp. But I think the drive to like be better was always there.
Yeah.
So yes, it was like, I'm just gonna do it. That was always there.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
You're doing it for yourself, and not like in your heart at the end, it really comes down to like you love this, and even though things affect you, you're still going to try your best to push through it, because in your heart this is what you love.
Yeah, like I think the way that I would describe it is like I remember watching like a bunch of the vert pros skate the big vert ramp, and I like Tony Hawk, Cara Beth Burnside, and I remember watching them and being like, I always had this dream, like I want to fly like that.
Yeah.
And so whenever I am like scared of something, I think that like the dream comes back, and like the power of that dream is just like I want that feeling, so I don't really care, I don't really care like what I have to do or whatever. But before that sets in, there's definitely a lot of like insecurity and all of these other things that we're dealing with in just what it means to be like a woman. And I think, I would describe it, once I get up on the deck, it's like go time. The hardest part is to even walk up the stairs
and get on
the deck. And I think that whole experience is majority of my mental experience in skateboarding, is just the journey like up the ramp. Because like once I get there, I'm just like, like we're gonna do this. It's like if you become an athlete, like it's just like totally, it just melts away. But it takes like so much to get there. So that kind of brings me back to what we were like talking about, which is the formative years, I guess, like the years in between. Let's see. So I think we were talking about like 90s skateboarding and how there weren't really any competitions, and I was usually the only girl. At that time, there were a few magazines. There was like SB magazine. I'm forgetting the name of the magazine right now, but her name is Liz. She used to have this amazing magazine back in the day. And I used to like find those magazines, because again, I grew up in San Diego, where there's a lot of skate and surf culture. So there's a lot of skate shops, there was magazines. And I think like there was some at the skate park, and they used to give them out. And it was specifically girls action sports magazines. And if you go on like Look Back Library, like on Instagram, you can see like all these old magazines that featured all of the like pros from that time. All the female pros from that time. And like I just used to get like super inspired, and I just remember seeing like contests like the all girls skate jam they used to have in Oceanside, where there was probably like 5 girls skating. I don't even know, 5 to 10 maybe. But I was like younger than most of the girls that were skating at that time, so, or most of the people that were competing, and I just I didn't understand like how to get into the competition circuit, like the access there. It's crazy because I grew up in, you know, mecca of the industry in San Diego. I had a lot of resources. I was really privileged to have so many resources that I didn't realize that I had until I had left. But at the same time, I didn't feel like I had access to, or the know-how, without, like, a lot of kids now when they're competing, like their parents are helping them kind of navigate, you know, we're going to go to this contest, or we're going to go here, or whatever. And when you're like 10, you don't really like know how to navigate that. And so like, I don't really know where these contests are. Like, I just see them in the magazine. And this is also pre-social media, so you're kind of like,
and also, like, with time, right, there's like now kind of a blueprint of how to navigate these things, whereas now, like, right, these parents can look at other kids who have done something similar, get an idea of how they did it, how they built it, you know, that kind of thing.
And Castle, the youth skateboarding league, I can't remember what it actually stands for, but Castle is like the competition circuit. So it was around at that time. I just didn't know about it. And like, I didn't really have the, like, I guess, know how to navigate that and make those relationships and stuff. So yeah, I just kind of like stuck to my park and skated and did like the local contests at the camp and stuff. And it was always really excited. I mean, I remember like placing in them. So it was just like really, really fun for like the only girl in skate camp to like place against the boys. It was really cool. And I also had like amazing, the camp counselors were amazing. And like, I still know them to this day, and actually saw one of like my mentors who was like at the Clash at Claremont, and we just saw each other, and I was like, I haven't seen you in like 20 years. This is amazing. He's super cool. But like, I had that kind of like community of support, but like internally, like the experience of actually skating and going up onto the deck and being with all boys, you kind of just, again, it starts to kind of like eat away at you a little bit. And then in addition, as I started to get a little older, like I was in my teens, they had just built a brand new park. So now we had one of the bigger vert ramps from X Games. And I started to notice that like a bunch of the guys were getting really, really good. Later on in life, I realized that all of their parents were pro skaters. But I did not know that until, you know, I was older. So I was like, wow, like all these guys are like progressing. Like, I don't understand, like why am I not getting good? And at that time, you know, girls were starting to pick up like slightly more traction. Like, I would say that this is like traction, not attraction, traction in like media. So this is when like Rocket Power was a big thing. So cool.
Literally, I bought my first board.
Yeah, you see, and then Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It was all around this time. So skateboarding was kind of like becoming a little bit more mainstream after it kind of died there for a while. And I remember that one of the camp counselors asked me to do like this Nickelodeon thing for Rocket Power. Actually, we did a live action. It was so fun. I still have the shirt. Remind me, and I'll show you guys next time. But
please, it's like my chest right here.
No, but it was actually like a big thing for me. It was like amazing, but it was also one of those experiences that really created like a big story for myself, like a negative story.
Oh no.
So yeah, it was like a bummer, but you know, I had a great it was like super fun. It was rad. Okay, let's just like say that. But basically what ended up happening was they wanted me to be an alternate for Lindsay Adams Hawkins. Yeah. And I was like super pumped. I was like so excited to be there, all this stuff. And if you're familiar with what an alternate is, it's basically when somebody gets hurt,
yeah,
you're gonna skate for them.
Understood.
And then I realized like what an alternate was, and I was like, oh, I can't even skate. Like I'm not gonna actually skate in the thing. So I was kind of bummed or whatever. Yeah. And
so I have a question. So with that, so Lindsay was there multiple boys?
Oh, it was yeah, the whole thing was guys.
Oh, so it was all guys, and she was the one girl, and then there was one alternate for the girl.
Yes, there was one other girl. I have been trying to find that girl for so long. I don't remember her name. I just remember what she looked like. And I don't.
Yeah,
video. Anyone knows.
Yeah, maybe. So there was 3 girls, I guess.
Okay, but
there might have
was Lindsay was the only one who was.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So what they did is they paired all of us with a pro skater at the time. And it was like a relay race. It was Nickelodeon's like live action Rocket Power they did a relay race from all over the world. So they would film 3 different locations. And then we would race each other around the skate park or whatever. And then we'd like relay it to a pro, and then they'd do a trick, and then it could go back. And it was like so fun. Oh my God, I was like over the moon, right? But like in the process of it happening, I think like I started to realize and started to like get more and more insecure about myself and my skating. I think I was about 10 years old, and I had just like probably a month before, probably gotten like the worst injury that I had ever gotten on skateboarding. There was this roll in, and I had tripped going down it. Like, I don't know if you guys experienced that when you like are about to like, run and get on your board, and you like kind of trip. Yeah. Well, I tripped, but like on the roll in. So I just fell down like 10 feet and I hit my lip and like split my lip open. Oh. And it was my 10th birthday. So I remember it very specifically. And my mom, again, like I said, she worked at the YMCA. So she was the manager there at the time. And so they called my mom, and they're like, yo, you need to come like get your kid. Yeah. Because I got stitches and like the whole thing. But wow, I was really scared to go back down that roll in. And like I could do it, I had done it multiple times, but I had just gotten hurt, and I was really, really scared of it. And the first thing that they wanted us to do at this show was to start on the roll-in, and I was just like, oh my God, like no, like I'm so scared. Like I think my lip was like still healing. And so I like couldn't do it. I like actually just couldn't do it. Like I like when I got off the ramp, or when they wanted us to like start the contest and do some like what do you call it, like when you're just like doing some tryouts or whatever. Yeah. I was like, okay, I have to just like jog down to the lower part of the ramp and like drop in there, because I can't do this roll in. So that was like first thing, like the story started, where I'm just like, I'm not as good as these kids, like I can't do this, right? And I'm lame. Yeah. As we kept filming and stuff, I was just bummed that I couldn't skate because I wasn't an alternate. And then there's also this vert skateboarder, his name's Jessie Frietze, and my name's Jessie Frietze. And so they kept like calling Jessie Frietze because he was one of the pros. Yeah. He's an amazing skateboarder. And I was like all excited, and then it kept being him, and they kept like confusing us and stuff. And so I was just like, wow, that really sucks. And then later on, Lindsay actually ends up getting hurt, like really bad. She actually fell on a BMX like handlebar, and had to go to the hospital. And so like I was like, oh my God, that's such a bummer, but I thought I was gonna get a chance. Yeah. And then she came back the same day, like from the hospital, and she was like, I'm gonna keep going. And I was like, no. And so it was like
take care of yourself.
Yeah, it was like the worst day. Like, and I mean, I'm glad she came back, and she came back and ripped. But
it becomes this interesting dynamic, right? Where because there's fewer spaces for women,
the competition
becomes harder. You know, it's kind of a supply and demand thing, right?
It feels like you start to see your friends like a little bit of like enemies, even though you cheer for them, you want them to do well, but you also want a chance for yourself.
Yeah, and you're not
100%.
Exactly,
everyone.
there's no space.
Yeah, and I think if we were to like fast forward from this story, that story was kind of a formative story,
of course,
in that I realized I had to be the best to get anything.
Right.
And I think it was just to skate. And so like that, I mean, that like experience, like in many ways really broke me. Like I was so sad. Like I think I was like started crying and all this stuff. And like one of these BMXers at the time, he was a black BMXer, which was pretty rare. Like you really didn't see a lot of black BMXers at that time. He came up and he was like, hey, it's gonna be okay. And he gave me some stickers. And like I will never forget that experience. Like I still have a photo of him. And so it was like those moments, right? Like there were always like guys who were supportive, but the majority of the experience was like sad. Like I was sad, and I felt very alone in that experience. And so as I started to get older, it just kept getting reiterated more and more. You have to be the best. You have to be the best, like hands down, to get anything. And as I became a teenager and like sponsors started to take note, skateboarding started to become a bigger thing, and like in media and stuff like that. I remember a couple people had approached me about like writing for them, which one was like Osiris Shoes, which is like back in the day, this shoe company. And like, actually, I think they're still around, Osiris, but it was like there was only room enough for one girl. So you basically, and I think this is also a product of just San Diego culture, like super competitive, hyper focused on sponsorships and marketability. And like you get, when another girl shows up to the park, you're like, I have to show her up.
Of course.
There was no like, oh yay, like another girl, like I'm gonna like, let's skate together. It was like, oh shit, like I have to like beat her, basically.
Yeah,
I have to be better. And that really became an internal way of being. You know, it was like an identity. It was like, I'm gonna be the best. And this is definitely something that a lot of like women from that time talk about like the first girls combis contests and things like that, where they like the women were just trying to like show everybody up. Like I think there's a recording of Cara Beth saying that she like got all pissed because somebody dropped in on her and like just like, you know, went up to her and was like, don't mess with me. Like that kind of level of like, don't get in my way.
And it's not fun anymore at that point.
Yeah, it's not fun. Like, it's not fun. It ruins it.
The stakes are just so high because the industry has made it that way that it's impossible for you know, like you look for an outlet, which is this started as an outlet in search of like maybe a community of support, and then you're like slapped on the face with what is now the reality, which is like, no, I'm here to show you that you either are the best or you get out, because there's no space for anybody else.
There's no space for anybody else. I think that exists too in you know, in guys spaces as well. Well, yeah, but it's a little bit more like bro culture.
And you start thinking about, right, like intersectionality, right? Like, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to the society we live in, you know, we see a lot of white cis men in general, in life, you know, in advertising and in media and you know,
in the world.
And so you start thinking about, right, even in men's spaces, like where is there that room for a men of color, you know, or LGBT men or trans men, you know, and these kinds of situations where there's already not even enough room for all the white cis men that want to do it. And then you start opening up these more of these identities, and it's just getting more and more complicated. And then you think about women, and it's like, well, where do trans women have the room, or women of color? And you know, it becomes like already.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah,
right?
no,
like,
right?
It
really doesn't. Like we're proving it now. It doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But all these doors are opening where it's like this could have been, you know, happening for so long. But
I think what's interesting now is that the change that is happening is not really even coming from the big brands or anything like that. It's coming from the community, and it's
coming from the underground.
Exactly, which is the best way to do it. You know, it's like we know what we want to feel when we go to a skate park, and we're not relying on a brand or anything like that to give that to us. So we're searching for those people in our own communities and bring them together. And now there are so many skate crews and collectives all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think it's definitely the underground has always been what's changed skateboarding. So it's been really cool to see it change. And I think like it's like a crazy experience to see myself then and to see myself now and the change that's happened over those years. Just mentally and to like with my own self-worth and understanding what that is and what that is connected to. Because like back then, my self-worth was based on my performance. And like I remember very specifically going at that time, you know, all that stuff was happening. Like I remember specifically being invited to a skate session put on by Silly Girl Skateboards, who I used to ride for. And I didn't understand, like I'd never skated with that many girls before. Like they were like a girls skate company out of Orange County, and there was really like no girls crews like at that time. And I get there and I was like such a bitch. Like I was so mean.
I don't know how to behave.
I was like, I'm gonna get here and show them that I am the best. Like I'm gonna get this sponsorship, and like they were all friends, right? And so I get there and I was like such an ass.
It's like, who is this?
I was so mean. Like I remember it like to this day, because I actually am friends with like all those girls now, which is hilarious. But at that time, like it was like you're really it's me or no one else. Like I have to be the best, and that really did ruin it. Like it ruined the fun,
of course.
And it really did. Like it starts to eat away at you. It starts to, you know, like it kind of like ruins your self-worth, because if you don't perform at a certain level, then I think that's the best way to describe it. Like I would say in my head, if I don't perform, if I don't get this sponsorship, if I don't, you know, get this whatever, then I'm worthless. And that is totally toxic, and it eats away at you. You start to have more insecurities, and that turned into like a lot of resentment towards the industry and anger towards the industry, which is ultimately why I stopped skating.
So you stopped at the age of 18?
Yeah, I stopped at the age of around 18.
Like time where it's starting to really be like, okay, well, if I'm going to get into the industry, this is where they're starting to really notice. And it's just all that pressure surmounts.
Yeah, I think there was like multiple things going on. Like one, skateboarding was growing, becoming like a bit more mainstream, I guess. Like Vans was becoming really popular around that time and stuff. And I started to notice some more girls. Like there was Silly Girl Skateboards, there was the girls combi competition. But my experience of that and my identity was so attached to there's only room for one.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know how to like engage or interact in that space.
How to open that space.
Yeah, how to open that space. And so I was just like mean. Like I remember seeing like Alicia Brigado or Lizzie at the Combi, and like I would not talk to them, you know, until I was a little older. Then I would like say hi. But yeah, I remember like I wouldn't talk to them, and that it just turned to this like towards this like anger and resentment, and then that resentment also ended up not allowing me to give myself permission to like see that there were actually people there who wanted to support me. Mm-hmm. I had basically rewritten the story in my head to say like, no, you're lame, like they don't want you here.
Of course, yeah, it's, you know, your own insecurities just like took over. And what's interesting is that I wonder if the other girls who were skating at the time, if they were also feeling that too, right?
I think yes and no. I think I've talked to a couple of them, or I've heard them speak as well. Mm-hmm. Like some of them came in a little bit later, so maybe didn't have that like, and this is something that I still struggle with and like really have to continuously overcome, is those formative like experiences in the 90s where it really felt like it was implied like girls are not welcome here. And I think if they came in a little bit later to where there was that support system, like Silly Girl Skateboards, like if look at Bryce, she was one of those girls. And so, I'm sure she's dealt with a lot, but she also like grew up with this network and support culture around her, and we've seen the benefits of what that can do, and how good you can get at skateboarding with that around you.
Absolutely. I think some of us say that part of that also becomes kind of this snake eats tail kind of thing, where the more that you're like having this narrative in your head of like all this pressure and this anger and all this like this your self-worth being reliant on your performance, it actually makes your performance worse.
Right. Yeah, it does, because you don't have fun.
What is it?
Self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes. You're already telling yourself like it's not gonna work, so it's never gonna work, you know? And it kind of becomes this thing of like the more down you get, the worse you're gonna do. So the more down it's like this total cycle, that is like hard to break out of.
You're like totally describing it for sure. I think what I usually said to myself in the story that I still have to overcome is I'm not good enough. Mm-hmm. It was like, I'm never good enough. Mm-hmm. I'm never good enough to get on the ramp. I'm never good enough to get the sponsorship, like whatever it is. And that drove this cycle. Yeah. And like, I remember, it's crazy. I went back and read like a diary from when I was a teenager. I had like completely rewritten in my mind an experience that happened with Cara Beth Burnside. And I don't think I've ever shared this with like anybody except for like maybe my partner, but she saw me one day at the skate park, and I remember watching her like skate the vert ramp, and it was amazing. And she was like, I went up there and skated with them. Mm-hmm. Like I skated with Mimi and Cara and skated the vert ramp. And then afterwards she was like, hey, like we have some stuff. Would you want some like gear? And I was like, yeah. It was like so cool. I still remember it, and I still have the wheels and all this stuff. And recently when I saw her, I thanked her and all that stuff because it was like this really cool experience. But I went back and looked at how I had how I remembered the experience. Well, how I remembered the experience was that I never even skated with them.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I didn't remember it. I completely rewritten it. I'd remembered that she gave me some wheels, and that was really cool. And that, I just didn't have enough courage to like go up and skate with them or talk to them. Wow. And like yeah, it's just like crazy. It's like, it makes me emotional. And then that, like, nobody supported me. Like I never had anybody give me gear and stuff like that. There was like no support. I went back and reread the diary of how it actually happened. And how it actually happened was I went up and skated with them, talked to them, like hung out and did a session, like had a session. And then she gave me some wheels. And then a couple weeks later, her roommate actually worked at the skate park, and he said, "Hey, Carabeth brought me all this gear for you, like a skateboard, a new Powell deck, and told me to give it to you whenever I saw you." And I was like, wow, I like completely rewritten that story in my head over years and years and years. And like, that's not how it even happened. That there were actually people there that wanted to see me like succeed, and that there was support, and my internal dialogue would not like allow me to see that or even remember that.
Yeah.
So like later on down the line, I just felt like nobody wants me here, I have no support, whatever, and which ended up leading to this resentment a lot, and basically caused me to like quit skateboarding.
So
which is completely crazy.
You're 18, which means that puts us at what year? And
this is around let's see. Damn, I feel like I'm getting old, dude. Like I'm trying to remember the years. Let's see. It's about 2008.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you quit. You're still in California.
Yeah, I had just gone to college. I moved up to Orange County, so that's why I was skating the Combi Bowl a lot, the block at Orange, and started to see a little bit more girls skateboarding, which is really cool. And actually met some amazing people. It was crazy because right when I stopped, I was getting like probably the best I had ever been. I was just learning airs. I remember like the guys who skate the OG jams now were the same guys that taught me how to air. So coming back to it, like Lonnie Hiramoto, amazing, just like really supportive men in the industry. And a person by the name of David, who used to be known as April, but that's their dead name. Their name is David, and they were featured in the Exposure documentary, was the first person to teach me how to 50-50. Wow. And they were like, yo, you're really scared of the coping. Like, you just need to do it. And I'm like, you're right. And then they're just like, okay, just go do it. And so I led like that. I was like, sick. It worked. But that I was like having a really good time, but the insecurity just kind of ate away. And I ended up I was like, forget it. I'm not even going to keep skating. And like just went to college and just kind of like focused on other stuff, focused on, it was always there in the back of my mind though, right? Like I never got rid of my skateboard.
Right.
It was just like something tucked away that it was like kind of giving up on your dreams. It was like, it's never really going to happen. Like,
you need to go to plan B.
Yeah, like or that idea, like, like be realistic or whatever.
You need to be an adult. You need to like get a college degree. You need to go do the things and, focus on like your career, whatever you're going to do, and like take yourself more seriously. Like all the things that, society tells us, like to be an adult.
Pretty much anything that is unconventional.
Yes. Yeah. And so, for sure.
So how do you end up in New York and why?
Yeah, so let's see. I ended up in New York because I went there for work. I used to be a political organizer, and so that's where I could find a job at the time. I moved to New Jersey, and I worked at like Rutgers University, which is like in central New Jersey. It's like nowhere near New York. And like I really just didn't like that culture. I didn't like my job, and so ended up moving to I took this crazy position with no experience at Stumptown Coffee, and that'll become important like later, which is why I'm mentioning it. And just moved to New York. So I was like, I just kind of took a leap of faith. I was like, I've always wanted to work in coffee. I'm just going to go do this. Like, it has nothing to do with my degree, like whatever. So, and then my partner also moved to New York along with me. So we ended up in Brooklyn and Jersey City, those two places. And we went back and forth between those two places. And I remember one day, I think we were like walking and we saw Chelsea Piers, which is Pier 62 skate park. It's like one of the hubs of skating in New York. And I think one day I had this like crappy board from some, I don't know. I went to the skate. When I went back home to visit, I went to a skate shop and I was like, I don't really know what kind of board to ride. Like, what should I ride? And this guy suggested it. It was like totally crap. It's like the worst suggestion ever. I don't know why he gave that to me, but so it was like way too long for me and like all this stuff. So anyway, I like brought it back to New York with me and I was just like, maybe I'll like go to the skate park just to like roll around or something. Because we had just moved there. We didn't know anybody. We didn't really like know what to do. We were just kind of like, eh. So on the weekend, I went over and like, I think it was a Saturday or Sunday, and went to Chelsea Piers. And I got there and it was like the old bros Sunday session or whatever. So there was like all these older dudes, and I know I drop in the bowl because I could still skate. Like, but I wasn't like at the level that I had been at, but I could still skate. And so I drop in and they were like, who are you? Like, it was very rare to see.
They were like, where did you come from?
Yeah, for sure. Like, they were like, well, first, we've never seen you skate here before. Secondly, like, you don't skate like you're from New York.
What does that mean?
I really don't know. Like, people tell me that I have this like very specific style. I think it just comes from like years and years of skating in San Diego. Like,
that's so interesting.
A comfortability, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. I want to know what a Florida skater look like. Like, what is that?
I don't know. I can't really see it, to be honest.
You're running out.
You're just holding an alligator.
It's like you get, like, it's like you can't see yourself skate, right? Of like course. You don't kind of really know what style you have.
Yeah.
I can't really tell.
Yeah.
What?
It's the same way how it's like you can't, like, you don't know what your own voice really sounds like.
Yes, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So if I figure it out one day, I'll let you know.
So then you're in New York. All these people are like, where the hell did you come from?
Yeah.
How did that like community building start for you there?
Yeah, so like they were kind of like, who are you? And where'd you learn to skate and all these things? And they were actually really, really nice. It was like refreshing. It was like they were super welcoming. They're like, you should come skate on weekends and like all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, like nobody's ever been this nice to me when I like show up at a skate park before. And honestly, I think that's just kind of how it started. Like, they were just really, really welcoming. They were kind of like old, like Burt dudes from the 80s and stuff that still continued to skate.
So would you say that, it had a lot to do with the fact that at this point, right, these are older dudes, maybe they started, like you said, like in the 80s. These are probably not people who are trying to compete at this point,
right?
They're not really trying to be pros. So maybe there's this kind of idea of, oh, we're really doing this for fun, for
the love.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of that they were just doing it for fun. One, because they're like a little older,
right?
But two, that just in general, people in New York or anywhere outside of California, for the most part, they just skate for fun.
Mm-hmm. Right.
They just skate for fun. And I had never experienced that before.
Right.
Of course, like I skated for fun when I was younger and people still do here, but when you're like so inside of the industry, and especially like my home park, like where I grew up was basically the industry.
Yeah.
all you see is sponsorships and competitions and people who are just like basically doing like 540s all the time. And so they're, you know, and like it's like
you say that, and then I'm over here being like, damn, like you don't know how to skateboard.
You're not even, that's not just hearing about like, it. That's not even witnessing.
I'm like, how dare you say that you skate?
No, like I mean that's how I used to be though. That's how I used to feel. Like I would be like, oh, like who are you, you know? And that's not, I don't want to perpetuate that because it ruins the fun of actually what skateboarding is. Yeah. And like, please don't feel like that. Because
I was just joking.
No, it's like the real fun in skateboarding is just that, to have fun.
Right,
to do it for the love of it. And I experienced that like from the moment that I walked into the park in New York. Like people were welcoming, they were friendly, and I think also the different kind of vibe of like New York skating is it's very creative, and like a lot of like street skating, street culture came out of New York, right? Like kind of the big like middle finger to the vert skateboarding industry.
It's a total
counterculture to like the traditional transition skateboarding in California with like the perfect get up and like, you know, just so and like that like those two worlds are like kind of always like competing against each other in skateboarding, I feel like. But it was really, really cool to experience that, or to be able to experience that coming from transition skateboarding and being like thrown into like more street culture vibes of New York. Even though this was a transition park, like it was just, it's creative and fun and welcoming, and like people just skate to have fun. And so like I started going to the skate park and just like started going to like the old bros sessions in the mornings and stuff, and or the old guys sessions, I should say, because there's a company called Old Bros. The old guys sessions. And actually I think Instagram started to come out around this time.
Okay.
And I got an Instagram. I was working at Stumptown Coffee in Brooklyn, and I think I started to meet a couple ladies at the park.
Okay.
There were like a trickle of a few people. There was like a young girl called Bombette Martin, who, if you've heard of today, she's one of the Olympic skateboarders for Great Britain. But she was like a Grom at that time. So there was kind of like these people, like these women, like speckled through the community. And I was like, this is just really fun. Like I'm starting to have fun skateboarding, and like the drive to want to get an air like came back. And I was like, okay, I want to get an air. Like I want to do the backside air, frontside air, all this stuff. And, you know, started going to the park a little bit more, and like the 80s guys would like start to heckle me, and it was just like fun, you know. They were still men, let's just say that, you know. They were still like, I was like, okay, that is like a totally inappropriate comment, or what things that they would say to me, but at the same time I could tell that the support was there, that like I never had felt before. So, and then I saw this like Instagram clip or a photo of this skate ramp in Brooklyn, and they were like, hey, it's a girls session, like come ride this skate ramp in this like backyard or whatever. And I was like, okay, like I had never, you know, I'd had that silly girl experience where I was just like a complete ass showing up and being super mean. So I was like, I'm gonna rewrite this, like I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back and like I'm gonna go to a girl session, like see how it goes, right? And I didn't know anybody. And so I don't know if you've had the experience to go skate in New York, in Brooklyn, but it's like a very different experience. And like I get there and I don't know where this thing is. Like I'm in the middle of Bushwick, and I'm just like, there's no gate or anything. Like I'm at the address, and I can hear the skateboards. Okay. So I'm like, I know the ramp is here. Like, where is it?
Something is happening.
Yeah. And so I see this guy just like come out of this like very like opaque gate, like from the side alley or whatever. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna just like walk into that gate and see if there's anybody back there. And I walk down this alley, and then there's this mini ramp with all these girls. and like guys too, and they all like turn and look at me, and I'm just like, hi.
I'm here to write my story with people.
Yeah, and they're just like, what's up? And I was like, hey, and I was like super nervous, but everybody was super nice. And I mean, it was a little awkward because I didn't know anybody, but it was really cool. And that's basically my first kind of like, okay, I'm coming back. Like I'm gonna skate with girls and like rewrite my story basically. And that was Fem Skate, a crew in Brooklyn at the time, and the beginning of what would become the Skate Kitchen.
Oh wow.
So that's kind of the linkage, I guess, to so everyone
that you get. You were able to see, you know, those very early stages of what now I would say everybody who's in the who skates or knows about skateboarding, or even some people who don't even skate, know about Skate Kitchen.
Yeah, I mean, they have changed culture. It's definitely formative for the skateboarding community. Like they've changed so much, and it was really cool to know them and see them in that. And also like they helped me rewrite my story too. You know, it wasn't like on purpose. It wasn't like a thing like we're doing this to do this on purpose, but it was more of like everybody in that space at that time. You know, I actually started to teach skateboarding lessons with an organization called Girls Riders Org, and I got hurt actually at Chelsea, and so I like once I got hurt, I was like, I'm gonna go back and teach. Like I'm gonna teach Girls Rider at this thing in Brooklyn, and so some of those girls, the Skate Kitchen ladies, would come teach or ride or whatever, and it was just like everybody was just hanging, like we're just skating. And you know, trying to be there for each other and trying to like be excited and just have fun. And that's kind of what really like I think allowed me to like begin to overcome these old stories and insecurities from the past of just like I'm having fun, like I'm with my friends. This isn't about sponsorships. It's not about the industry. So yeah,
for you, and you know, like having a good time.
So
New York, and then you eventually, I mean, you live in California.
Yeah, so basically I was still working for Stumptown at the time. I was able to come back. They had a roastery in LA, and I was able to come back home. So we had really wanted to come back home and be in California because New York is a grind. It's like a total hustle, and we were over it. So we decided to come back, and at that time there was this kind of newer competition for girls called Exposure. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I started, you know, Instagram started to become a thing, and I could see it was like the magazines were coming back, but like online. And I was like, this is so amazing. And this like drive really came back to want to compete. And I had started to compete at Riverside Skate Park in New York. I actually did my first like real competition before. I was so nervous. I had never done a competition.
I was gonna ask, like,
outside.
so how was that going back, you know, to competing, especially with this whole new narrative of like, you know, I'm the only one, or there's room for a little bit more, you know, like how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was like weird. It was weird. It was